Tonight we begin with China. It has launched another map war. Just days after an agreement on diffusing the border conflict with India, China has resorted to another provocation, a new map that claims Indian territory as Chinese. Take a look at this. This is what China calls the 2023 edition of the Standard Map of China. Let's zoom in. What do you see? China has claimed two Indian territories, Arunachal Pradesh in the east, China calls it South Tibet, and the Aksai Chin region. It is part of Greater Kashmir. Aksai Chin belongs to India, but China illegally occupied it in the 1962 war. Now, Beijing has released a map showing these territories inside China. The fact is, these are not new claims. China has made them before. What is striking in this instance is the timing. Last week, Xi Jinping was at the BRICS summit in Johannesburg, South Africa. So was Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The two leaders spoke about the border. There was an agreement to de-escalate. China made a commitment to engage in dialogue, and this is how they do it. This new map is China's way of setting the tone for the conversation. This is a way to put pressure on New Delhi, and I come back to the timing. In just a few days from now, India is hosting the G20 summit. Xi Jinping is supposed to attend. Last we checked, China had not confirmed his attendance, but reports say hotel rooms are being blocked for the Chinese delegation in New Delhi. So preparations are underway. Then what do we make of China's map war? Is it trying to catch India off guard? Is it trying to leverage Xi Jinping's attendance? Is this their way of securing a favorable deal at the border? Well, if that is the Chinese strategy, it is simplistic and disconnected from reality. Because India is no pushover, and Xi Jinping's presence at G20 may not have a bearing on India's position vis-a-vis the border. Also, the border issue goes beyond troop withdrawal or India's focus on Chinese disengagement. India's boundary with China is not well defined. The border is about 4,000 kilometers long. It stretches from Ladakh in the north to Arunachal Pradesh in the east. India and China do not agree on where the boundary should lie, and that's the source of this dispute. It has led to border skirmishes and a war. What is the solution? Define the boundary. But it's easier said than done, because the dragon is a sly customer. It wants to assert its expansive claims. Recently, Beijing has focused more on Arunachal Pradesh, and this too has to do with India's G20 presidency. You see, the Leaders' Summit is this week. In fact, it's happening in about 10 days from now. But over the past few months, India has held more than 100 G20 meetings in different parts of the country, including in Arunachal Pradesh. There was a G20 meeting on science in Arunachal Pradesh. It was a two-day affair. China was invited, but they chose to skip it. This was in the month of March. 1 month later, in April, Beijing made an announcement. It issued a list of what it called standardized names. 11 places were on this list, all from Arunachal Pradesh and all with Chinese names, including 5 mountain peaks, 2 populated areas, 2 land areas, and 2 rivers. One of the towns that China listed was close to Itanagar. That's the capital of Arunachal Pradesh, also the city that hosted the G20 meeting in March. So you get the link. And this is an old Chinese game. They keep releasing these lists with Chinese names for Indian cities and towns. Over the years, such lists have grown longer. In 2017, China's Civilian Affairs Ministry published a list. It renamed 6 places in India. In December 2021, China tried to rename 15 places, and then we have their cartographic aggression, aka map wars. The latest one has been released by the Ministry of Natural Resources in China. It claims not just Indian territory, but also the South China Sea and Taiwan. China is set to release digital versions of these maps too. And what is India's response? Well, what it has always been, that Arunachal Pradesh and Aksai Chin are an inalienable part of India. I have a statement, in fact, from the Ministry of External Affairs in India, and this is what they've said. We have today lodged a strong protest through diplomatic channels with the Chinese side on the so-called 2023 Standard Map of China that lays claim to India's territory. We reject these claims as they have no basis. Such steps by the Chinese side only complicate the resolution of the boundary question. So India has made its position clear. How will all of this affect the border talks then? That we'll have to wait and see. Remember, in last week's meeting in Johannesburg, India and China had committed to a de-escalation. We don't know if they set a timeline. But we do know that talks have been on. Earlier this month, military commanders from both sides met. It's not taking them anywhere though, because the solution to the standoff is not military, it's political. Border demarcation is the first step, and talks are the way to do it. But is China serious about a meaningful conversation? This new map is the latest example of their duplicity.